living or living inspired, however you guys want to do, show that or call that. There was a song, and it's kind of the background. I had a different message prepared when I found out last week that I was going to be teaching tonight. So I sat down, I looked up some material, and I really formulated an outline, and I got some things worked out. And it's crazy, because then this morning, I hear a song, I get a call from LJ, and then I just feel like I needed to change it. Even as I was preparing it this morning before I left to go to work, because I actually had some time before I left, I had to leave. I had like 20 minutes, which doesn't usually happen. So I was on the fence, like, I don't know that this is the message. And it's funny because I even said it to my wife. I was like, I think I'm supposed to change it. So then I hear this song. And for those of us in the room that listen to a lot of Christian hip-hop, this guy Bizzle is getting ready to drop his brand new album called The Good Fight. And he had to push it back. There were some problems. So I think next week it's actually supposed to come out. Or this weekend even. Yeah, so he released a track on there, and I think he called it, I forget what it's called, but it's got to do with his personal struggle, okay? And this guy is really transparent about what it is that he struggles with. And I'll get to that because I think it really, after hearing it, it's what caused me to change the direction of my message, more or less. I think it's still the same, but it caused me to look at it differently and put another perspective on it. So I'm going to take you to 3 places. Again, I'll post the notes, so if you don't have a Bible, no worries. I usually have them on my notes, so I'll read them to you. But if you do have a Bible, I'm in the New King James, and the verse that I'm going to go to first is 1 Peter, and that's chapter 2. So 1 Peter 2 and 1. Actually, I won't even need this one because I have it written down.
It's called My Confession.
Yeah, My Confession, thank you.
7.
That's it, with 7. And 7's just singing the hook in the background. He's not even rapping. I thought he was going to rap. So it's 2 Peter 2. And verses 1 and, well, it's 1 through 3 because they're kind of a cluster, but I'm only going to focus really on 2, but I'll read it in context. It says, "Therefore, laying aside all malice, all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and all evil speaking," verse 2 is the point, "as newborn babes, desire the pure milk of the word that you may grow thereby." And verse 3, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is gracious." So the emphasis in that one, again in 1 Peter chapter 2, "as newborn babes desire the pure milk of the word that you may grow thereby." So I've called mine growth, or to grow. That's my message tonight. And then in Hebrews 5:14, conversely, if you're keeping up, and again I'll post these, "but solid food belongs to those who are of full age, that is, those who are by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil." And so the emphasis in there, but solid food belongs to those who are of full age. I started thinking about the word growth. I started thinking about maturity, spiritually, physically, what that looks like for us. And when you're a kid, you know, it says that when I was a child, I thought as a child, I acted as a child, I did things that were like a child. But then when I became a man, I threw away, or I put away childish things, and I did that which was like a man. That's a loose paraphrase. So I started thinking about growth in us as men. Because there came a time in our lives, be it through responsibility, be it through you decided to move out or got kicked out from your parents, be it you had a child, be it you got married, you got serious about a girlfriend, your first job, anything, your first car, something caused us to kind of take a step up in maturity, and we grew as a man. And once we claimed ownership of that thing, our priorities changed. And so it wasn't necessarily about sitting, if you got a brand new car and it was a project, right? So you got some beater that you found, someone sold it to you for like $500, which felt like it was $1 million, when you didn't have a job and you were trying to get all the money together. And like Elton's son is a great example. So Elton helped his son Brandon fix this Volkswagen. And they made it a project, and they spent time together, and they got, you know, the door stuff for it, and some of the front of it. I mean, it's really nice on the dash, and he's got this kind of netted shelf deal that goes underneath that he puts things on, and there was a radio, and they worked on the engine, and they did all kinds of stuff. And the car, you know, is a nice Volkswagen, and it's not done. So Brandon raised money or did what he needed to do, and then his priorities changed. Much like it did for us, whatever your responsibility was. Now work was a priority. It wasn't a luxury. It wasn't something you felt like you had to do. You needed to work now. You know, when you got married, you needed to provide for your wife, for your kids. You needed to change how you thought about things you didn't want to do or like to do. Well, because you're the leader, now you have to think differently. And me and Anthony had a great conversation about this last night. You know, there comes a time when you just got to kind of step up, and even though they may not agree with how you do stuff, you got to lead. You have to lead. And so for me and my wife, that was never a point of contingency. It was just I was never the first one to step up because I was afraid of how my choices would affect everyone or everything that was around it, involved in the one. So I would get so caught up in all the details that it was hard for me to just make a decision. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, before you know it, the opportunity's gone. And, you know, if you're married, your wife gets frustrated because that sense of security gets rocked because she just needs you to make a decision. But we get so caught up on all of the, or I do, for me, I get so caught up on all of the different aspects of the one decision that I'm like, well, what if this doesn't like that, and what if he doesn't like this, or what if that doesn't happen, or what if this and that and all this other stuff, and what if this gets affected funny and all this other stuff. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth hurts. Growth sucks a lot of the time. But as men, we got to kind of suck it up because it's our mandate. We were created first. God gave us dominion and told us to subdue the earth. And had Adam name the animals and all of these things. He gave Adam the mantle of decision making. You are a man. I created you. Now I'm giving you this as a stewardship, so now you need to own it. So we have to own our growth. Okay, so we talked about the milk of the word, that as babes you need that. And you do when you come to Christ for the first time. Even metaphorically speaking, if you just apply it to your life without it being Christ-centered, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like just applying it to your life as you grow at being a husband or growing as being a father. There are things that you need to do first and learn how to do first, right? Because there's no book on how to be a husband. There's no book, you know, even though you've got psychologists writing all these different things. And as a father or as a boyfriend, as a good person who's looking to find a spouse, or you being a spouse to someone else, there's no rules really. We kind of learn as we go, and if you're fortunate enough, you have really good close friends that don't mind telling you how it is and will teach you from their experience, or maybe you've got a mentor or somebody that you grew up with who's older and has been married for like 30-odd years and can tell you, yeah, don't worry about it. You think this argument's bad, wait till they get, wait till you're older. You know what I mean? Wait till you've been married for like this many years and you find out you've been arguing about the same crap. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that first argument, I remember when I had my first argument with my wife, I could not go to work. I went to work, okay, and I was a wreck. I just had my first big fight with my wife. I'm being too transparent, but that's what happened. And I had a manager. Yeah, oh no. I had a manager who was a female. I was in the back of the house. I was working at the Black Spot Grill at the Treasure Island. Never forget it. I was in back of house, and Eva was her name. She comes out and she's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "I just had a big fight with my wife, and I don't know if I can work." She was like, "Calm down." First of all, you can't leave because we need you on shift. Okay, I was working swing shift. It was always busy because we were right adjacent to the Mystere Lounge.
Yep.
So man, we get hit 4 times a night, big, because everybody's trying to hurry up and eat so they can go see the show, or they're coming in after the show, or whatever. And so calm down, it's going to be all right. Got through that, right? And then you're right. Like as you get older, it's like some of it's just like, okay, it's not a big deal.
Yep.
So as I grew, I had to learn how to do things differently. I couldn't think the same way anymore. So that was the milk of the word. Now it's saying for those who are a full age, this is indicative of maturity. Now it's the meat of the word. Now it's the meat. Now you're getting some sustenance to kind of fill the decision-making process, or maybe you're not sure how to approach this thing, or how do I talk to my wife about this problem? How do I tell her it's okay for her to come to me about this problem? You know, or now I'm a dad, so I need to raise my kids accordingly. You know, all the things that your fathers and your mothers were to you, that's what you try never to be to your kids. And then you realize you end up being that because you're kind of programmed that way. You instinctively, almost through osmosis, you just kind of soak up all these different things. I remember in the very beginning, I would thump my boys, and my wife hated it. But I learned that from my uncle, because my Uncle Sid would do it all the time. Whenever we were acting up, pop, and it hurt. So, and I would tell her, well, this is how I was raised. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of instinctively go back to what you knew to raise or do certain things. So talking about growth. So as I was looking through the word, growth has a lot of different meanings, but the ones that I want the emphasis on is to develop to maturity, to become great, or to cause to increase. Okay? So to spring or to develop into maturity. We obviously know what that means. You know, being young men, you go through the stage of puberty, you start, you know, realizing things. There's stuff you didn't see before, certain feelings you never had. That kind of maturity starts there physically, but in our minds, that maturity never really fully, there's even science talks about how as you're growing, your frontal lobe is developing at this ridiculous rate. And that's why kids are so emotional. Because all of that decision-making process in the frontal lobe is tied to emotions. And that's why they're okay one second and they're terrible the next. Because something, you know, fires different, you know, neurons in their mind and all this other stuff. And then when you think about it in the perspective of as we're growing as men, well now, again, it's a first job, it's a girlfriend, it's whatever. You start seeing things differently. You're no longer playing with toys. Now you might graduate to video games. You know what I'm saying? Because now, you know, you don't have to worry about the Transformers anymore. Now you're playing a game. Now you're kind of escaping into that, right? That's kind of a reality or a different place to think. Then as you're growing, maybe if you grow out of video games, right? And you start pursuing other things like a hobby. Or, you know, for me, it's this, and then growing with my kids and learning, you know, about my wife again, and you know, I can say that, and my son and all this other stuff. So my mind had to change, so I had to grow to maturity in that. To become great, there's a place where eventually you start to become great, so to speak. Now you're not so worried about if you can do something. Once you've kind of got it down, it becomes your thing. So what you do at work, you're no longer worried about IT issues unless there's different things that come out because, well, you understand it. For you as a drafter and me as a drafter who do CAD, once we've learned Autodesk or AutoCAD, depending, no matter if it's MEP or architectural, structural, it doesn't matter. Once we understand how to work a program, well, we know how to work it. Anthony knows how to install fences with his eyes closed. I mean, we can go around the room and each one of us has some kind of vocation that we're good at. You know, being at home and raising your sons. You have 3 boys. You know what I'm saying? So that's a vocation in and of itself. You know, so there's all these different things that we can all attribute that we've become good at. So you become great at it, right? And you become an asset or a commodity to where you work because they need you. What you offer in an area of expertise is what they look for you for. And you lead in that, right? So, and then the other word is to cause to increase. So now because your knowledge and you become great at it, you've matured in it, you've become great at this thing, now you expand on what you know. So you're not limiting your knowledge to where you are. And I have a big problem doing that a lot of the times. I kind of stay in the realm of what I know because it's comfortable. And I don't expand out too much because it's a lot to learn. So for me, the next step, like say for what I do in my vocation, I would need to learn Revit. Revit is a 3D-based software that's out. Architecture firms everywhere are picking it up. It's the next biggest stage in construction development now, because I can identify, hits in a room as far as structural stuff. If the mechanical is interfering with the fire alarm, and if the fire alarm is in the way of the plumbing, and if plumbing is going to not clear what we need for electrical equipment and all this other stuff, you can identify all of this now before it even starts to build. And as you're building it, it becomes what we know in our profession to be as-built drawings. So now I can identify problems before they're problems. You see what I'm saying? And then more efficiently now, something gets built, because now all of these different contractors have come together, and we've all agreed that this is the space you'll take, and I'll take this space, and I'll take that space. Great, let's sign off on the paperwork, and now we can go in for construction. So with Revit being my next thing, that's the step up, or the next thing. So now I'm no longer just a CAD operator. Now I can become a Revit modeler, is what they call it. So that would be the next thing I can kind of put on my resume. So as I was thinking, like, in real life situations, what would that be to us? I tried, who in the Bible I would think could personify that? And immediately I thought of Paul. And Paul, I think it's almost obvious, in a sense, Paul, because of how important to the New Testament church he was. And Paul, in the span of his time, did so many great things. And the one verse in particular that I wanted to focus on was in 2 Corinthians 12, where he's basically, in the paraphrase, he's praying for the thorn to get removed from his side, or from him. And a lot of theologians don't know if this is physical, if this is metaphorical, if it's a spiritual thorn. He said, I sought the Lord. Actually, I'll just read it to you. And he said, in verse 7, and lest I should be exalted above my measure, the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. Concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. And he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. It was in that Paul had to kind of acquiesce to the plan of God, because he prayed for this thing to be removed from him. And God didn't say he was going to take it. He just said, my grace is sufficient in time of weakness. You're going to struggle with that. And it never says if he took it from him. It never says that it was removed. So if you think about it in the chronology of the Bible, this is in 2 Corinthians. So you've got basically from Galatians all the way to Revelation, that Paul, in the midst of that timeline, there's 19 books he's written in that span. Short, some of them are. 19 chapters, or 19, whatever you want to call them. That he's preached in this, or he's been in jail, or he's healed this person, or this has happened, or he's been all these different places. From 2 Corinthians, when he acknowledges that something is afflicting him, right? All the way up until he's dead, you never really see that this was taken from him, right? So it caused me to think, well, what does that mean? Why would, if God is all sufficient and God loves us, aren't we supposed to pray and God just does it? Won't he heal our land? It says that by his stripes we have been made whole, and all these other things. But Paul was afflicted in a way, the word buffet there, and I've said it to you time and again, it means to beat violently. It said that it was a messenger from Satan to beat him violently. And he was talking about humility, I think. And I've really got to study that out some more. It's putting him in a place where he has to understand and trust that only God can do this. And even if he doesn't take it from him. And like Anthony says all the time when he's talking about the 3 Hebrew boys, even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow to that. So even if God didn't remove the thorn, be it physical or not, this could be a struggle Paul had. What if it was lust? What if he struggled with talking wrong to people? What if it was his attitude? What if it was this? We don't know what that was. So Paul prayed, and God said, don't worry about it, because my grace is sufficient in your time of weakness. There's going to be times when that thorn, whatever that is to him, is going to hurt. But it's in that, right? When we don't understand it, the first thing you want to do is get angry. The Bible never says you can't get angry, it just says don't sin. So you can be upset, and you cannot understand what's going on. Because as we grow, right, in Christ, there's going to be a lot of things in the church body you look at sometimes and you just don't understand what you're looking at. And for me even, sometimes now I look around and I'm just like, what is that? How does that happen? How does someone get upset with a pastor and then demand to talk to someone, then he doesn't or can't or isn't allowed, then gets in his car Monday morning and decides to run his vehicle through Central Christian? Not only does he crash into Central Christian, he drives his car around in the church, then vandalizes it.
That really happened?
It really happened. Yeah. This happened like 2 weeks ago.
What was I?
That's all they news.
So
I just heard about it yesterday.
yeah. So where does this happen in the body? That this is, and the first thing you can think of is this is God's house.
Yeah.
He protects his house. Well, nobody was there at 5-something in the morning while this guy is crashing his car around in Central. And that's the thing. Like sometimes you look at things in the body and it's like shootings. How do people die in a church with a gun? How does this happen? You know what I'm saying? So as you grow, right, not just in maturity, but as you grow in the Lord, there's going to be a lot of things you don't understand. Don't worry. That thorn's there, but His grace is sufficient in time of weakness. You're not going to always understand it, right? So I put before this point of acknowledgement, Paul has done many miracles. And that's even said in Acts 19 and 11. That's actually said in that scripture. So between Galatians and Revelation, he wrote 19 books of the New Testament. He's been to lots of places. He's been to Cyprus. He's been to Iconium, Lystra, Philippi, Thessalonica, Ephesus, Troas, and when he shipwrecked in Malta, right? He healed many. There was a lame man that needed to be healed. His garments, a handkerchief, and his shadow healed people. He brings a dead man back to life after falling and dies in one of his services, and that's in Acts 20, right? Casts a demon out of a little girl who can tell the future, and is chasing and is walking around behind them. Look, it's the sons of God, it's the men of God. But they recognize that as being a demon. They cast the demon out of the girl, and the guy who owns her, because he was making money off her, has Paul thrown in jail, along with the other guy, right? Survives being stoned, and then is eventually shipwrecked. And where he shipwrecks, he gets bitten by a snake while he's there. Right? Right?
Cherry on the top.
Right? It's like, what? All of this stuff. And then while he's on the island of Malta, there's a guy who's got dysentery and some other stuff, heals them. The people in that area in Malta find out that Paul healed this guy's dad, and they all come to him, and Paul does a bunch of healings for all these people, right? He got bit. He was shipwrecked. He got stoned. He's been thrown in jail all these times. And it's incredible that when you see Paul in jail, right, he never not really questions God. He doesn't understand what's going on, but his faith never fails. And his letters, right, still make it to the other churches that they need to get to in spite of the fact that he's in jail. So we're talking a kind of great exploits type of mentality. When you grow in maturity, right, when you cause yourself to increase in what you know in the Lord, right, when it's adding to you, I believe that there's a place there that God will allow you to do more. Because again, it's the stewarding principle. If we can be faithful in the little, He's going to make you Lord over much. So there's going to be more that as you grow, He's going to use you for. But don't relegate that to you can't bring a person back from the dead. Don't think of it in the sense of I can't heal someone or God hasn't given me a word for them. Have you not opened your mouth to someone before you knew Christ and now it's okay for you to share? That's a great exploit. Can you share the gospel or be more loving towards your family? That's a great big deal. Because families get divided for years, and even to the point of after death, that they've never spoken, and then they live with all these regrets. Can you forgive and you weren't able to do that before? This is all signs of maturity. This is all signs of going from the milk to the meat now. Now you graduated to something bigger and better than yourself, right? And then, so I put, during these exploits, he was, okay, I did that. He grew through his afflictions no matter how bad things seemed. He was ever increasing in faith and in stature in Jesus. What should have destroyed him physically, or what would have killed most Christians spiritually, now even. Like if you were to think, what would your life be if you were the Apostle Paul? And a lot of us can't even find it within ourselves sometimes to say, I'm sorry when you're wrong. Can you imagine your life lived out like Paul? There'd be a ton of Christians who couldn't even make it right now because of how bad that would be to us as people, And basically, all of these things made him stronger. And in the end, or not in the end, but one of the ends that you can kind of bring this message to a close with is, what snake, right, bit you on your island that you were shipwrecked on? What attached itself to you and put its venom in you? Well, Paul didn't die, and they were waiting for him to die too, because they saw it as a sign. They were waiting for Paul to die. And he didn't. And they knew then that it was God. You're on an island. You were on an island. You're on one now. And just when you got comfortable and you got warmed by the fire, that's when the snake came out and got your hand. And I likened it to this. Certain sin shipwrecks us through perpetual practice. Other sin will bite us just when we get comfortable. You were shipwrecked somewhere. Somewhere, if it's perpetual practice of your sin, which will bring me to what Bizzle put out in Confessions. Thank you for reminding me what that was. And I kind of struggled with this because I didn't know how much it should or can be covered. A lot of men in the church, and I think you all kind of know where I'm going with this, struggle with pornography. You struggle with lust. You struggle with masturbation. Bizzle, I will post it to the site. Listen to the song. If hip hop's not your thing, listen to it. It's a very honest account. And this guy has established a record label that's Christian. It's God Over Money is what they're called. He just signed this new guy called Selah the Corner.
Oh, okay.
You've never heard him? He's fire.
Yep.
Hoodie season. Download it. It's a free download too. He just signed him. God Over Money is doing a lot of big things right now. He relocated back to Houston. He left California, or he's in Houston now. Left California. God Over Money. Boy Wonder, who just was like nominated for some kind of Grammy for helping out other secular artists. Boy Wonder is producing Bizzle's album for free. So you look at all this stuff, and then you look at The Good Fight, and his second single, first was Dear Hip Hop, which was a great song. And his second one, he's talking about he struggles with porn. And he gives you a detailed account of what he struggled with from the time he was a kid and found it to where he is right now as a man. And it's crazy to think, so I listened to that, then I get a call from LJ. Because LJ and we share music all the time. And, it's almost a race, like who can find the hottest music first. And then we'll post it on each other's Facebook page and be like, look, you need to listen to this. And so far, LJ's been beating me. so I knew he didn't have this one, and I didn't even listen to it all yet, right? I was like, I got to get this to LJ. But then I listened to it, and then I posted it, and I put in there it's a very honest song, right? He calls me, and he was just floored by how honest Bizzle was, right? if you think about it in that kind of term, right? Lust often, and I'm not going to say it is all the time because I don't know what your vice is. I know for me, lust is mine. I don't know where you struggle, and that's not my thing. It's not my business to know. But if you were to poll every man in the church, and I don't mean the church LV, I mean the church, the body, I would wonder, and I think I heard a statistic once saying it's over 80%, and that's probably a ballpark, of men in the church struggle with pornography and masturbation. When you grow in maturity, you're no longer requiring the milk of something. And God starts to wean you off of the milk. And He needs you into solids now because He's going to start building who you are. Think of it for any of you guys that go and work out. You got to have some kind of creatine or something for lactic acid buildup. You have to make sure that you're taking enough and proper protein for the rebuilding of your muscles that you're destroying, literally, it says, when you're working out. You're tearing and you're tearing up muscles. That's why you see a lot of guys with tons of stretch marks, because now it's forming them and it's changing what they look like. There's all these different weight supplements and things that you can and should be taking and all this stuff to help your body. And sleep is a big deal, a part of that too, because obviously your body heals itself when you rest. God is building a structure. God is building you as a person. God is making you into something. And I put just on my Facebook page that never despise how God created you, because He's the potter. And God does everything with excellence. Don't think about how bad you might look or how it disqualifies you as a person. God made you. And if God's the potter and we're the clay, He created you exactly how He needed to create you. Because you're the vessel He needs you to carry what He's got for you for other people. And He created you just how He needed to create you. There are many guys who struggle with lust, pornography, masturbation, and I'm not going to get off of that because I think it's important. I think we need to talk about it. I think it deserves open dialogue. And as you're comfortable, and I'm not saying it's got to be to me. It doesn't have to be to Anthony. It doesn't even have to be to Pastor Paul or anybody that's in the church. Are you honest with yourself with it? Are you honest before your wife if you're married with it? Are you honest before a potential girlfriend with it if that's your deal? Because as long as we keep it hidden in the dark, the enemy is going to use it as a foothold every single time and without fail. Because guys are so visual. It's just how we're made. You can't help. You can. Because, Coach Reggie said it. You can't help what you look at, but you can help what you see.
You can't help what you see, you can help what you look at.
But you can help what you look at. So in passing, sure, boom. But that's that. Seeing, now you're looking. Right? Now you're here. Now you're wondering what it looks like under clothes. And immediately, and I don't know about you, it goes almost right back to the porn image. Boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, like a computer that's got a virus, boom, 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 boom. You got all of these images now bombarding your mind. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, Lord, I'm casting down vain imagination right now in Jesus' name. That's my like go-to prayer. And I say it often. Because I honor my wife. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to get to a place in my mind where it says that if I've done it in my heart, I've already done it. I don't want to commit the act of that with another person because that's for my wife. That's why God created that. So with those things, you've got to own what your vice is. You have to be willing to be honest enough with yourself to understand that this is a shortfall. And be inspired to do more than just tolerate it. And then, this whole thing now with Jason Collins. And we sort of talked about it in the beginning, and now he's come out and he's, the only active gay athlete or something like that, which I have a problem with. I don't believe he was the only one. They say there was one other guy. I'm sure statistically you could prove it. Martina Navratilova was a lesbian when she was playing tennis. You know, so she was there. And I guess on the male side, you know, there's a bunch of closet ones and others that don't come out and all this other stuff. But now they're making it into this big deal. And one of my favorite analysts for basketball, his name is Chris Broussard. And he's very intelligent when it comes to basketball. He actually spoke out against it on ESPN. Look it up, Rapzilla. Go to rapzilla.com. Look for Chris Broussard's headline, and they give you about a minute and a half of what he said on ESPN in a live interview. And he pretty much did not condone it at all. And he said that homosexuality is a sin. I'm a Christian, and this is what I know to be. And talked about how God, you know, does not like homosexuality, and He doesn't. We're never not in a place where we can't accept the person, but we don't have to accept the sin.
Exactly.
You're not going to let some guy that you barely know into your house start telling your kids and your wife what to do. That's your house. So if we being as Christians understand that this is the temple of the Holy Spirit, right? Or we operate in a place that's different than that of the world, we're no longer dying. Now we've been brought to something that's given us life. Right? So when they try to push the agenda of homosexuality on us, you don't have to be scared of it. Because then everybody gets so politically correct that they don't know how to stand up and respond in that. Homosexuality is an abomination before God. Period. And it doesn't matter how black or how white you don't want to be about that. And if you want to operate in the gray and you're comfortable there, then so be it. But it's not acceptable to the Lord. We bring them to church. Let them come. And Pastor Benny has made no bones about that. And I agree with that. But when they get there, here's what happens. The conviction of God is so overwhelming that they can't stay that way. They realize because of their love. Think about it when you got married. There was a lot of things you did before you got married. Now there's a lot of things you don't now that you are. And because you love your bride, you don't do them anymore. Now you're not out all night. Well, you know, me and Anthony might be out till like 11 after men's group or something. But, you know what I'm saying? But now you're not out.
You can't be talking about being gay and then being out.
I'm trying to make a point.
I don't know where you're going with that.
Let me bring it back.
We erase that point.
Let me bring it back. So there's a lot of things you can't do that you don't do anymore,
Right, we
right?
gotta delete that bad boy.
There's a lot of things you don't do anymore, right? But once the person who's the homosexual comes into the church, realizes that because now they're under a different covenant now. Now it's literally the bride being the church and the groom being Jesus. Now there's a marriage that we've entered into. And because they love the groom, they're going to change what they do. And not just in homosexuality. Maybe it's promiscuous sex. Maybe it's unmarried sex. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's alcohol. You can fill that line with whatever a vice or your vice is. But now because you love the groom, right, and enter into it in a marriage perspective, or because she loved you, there's a lot she's not doing anymore. Because now you're under covenant. Now you're married. Now things are different, right? So, you know, this whole coming out and all of that, I understand that, you know, it's a big deal for him. And you know, to be quite honest, I looked up his stats. He wasn't that good. You know, he played with Boston. He was talking about what the number 98 meant for, and that's symbolic and that's cool. There was a younger gentleman who played sports, and he was gay and was either murdered or killed because of his homosexuality. So he changed his number to 98 because that was the kid's number. And when he played in Boston, and I think now he plays for Washington, he's got the number 98, and that's his number that he plays. So I personally don't even remember Jason Collins until this whole Sports Illustrated thing jumped out. And I'm gay is on there, you know. So when it comes to growing in the Lord, right, there's a lot of things that you're going to experience as a Christian that might seem tough. But now because you're in Christ, your maturity is different, your growth is different, your the way you see and handle things does change. Not it can change, but it just does. Your perspective changes. The way you see things is different now. So when we grow in the Lord, you got to know that it's not going to be easy, and it's going to challenge you often, which is good, because it's growing us. And it's taking us from glory to glory. We're being built up to be something different. Peculiar people, or whatever the Bible says about us as being Christians. We're different now. We're no longer swimming with the flow of everybody else that's in the world. Now we've got something else that makes us greater because of Him. So whatever your vice is, and with it being for those of us who have or do struggle with pornography and lust of the eyes and all that other stuff, first of all, you're never alone. No matter how much you might feel like you are. And especially after or in the midst of. You're never by yourself. There's always a way out. The Bible says that when you're in a place where it's sexual immorality, you have to flee. Don't bargain with it. Don't run. Whatever that sounds like or whatever that means to you, just run. There's always a way out. Always a way out during time of temptation. That's a paraphrase. So you don't have to own that in the sense that it's yours alone to deal with, but own it in the sense that you're doing it. And be honest with yourself about where you are in that. And if you know that there's certain things that are your triggers, that are your weakness, stop going around them. Don't put yourself in the familiar places anymore. Stop looking at it as though, well, I'll just try this. Don't try, just do something different. And that had to be me. Because the conviction was for me as I was dishonoring my wife. And how can I tell my sons? You're not nasty. It's, some people say it's natural. I still believe it's a lack of self-control. But then to be able to tell your kids, this is how I dealt with it. And clean, with a clear conscience, be able to say it. This is what the Lord did through me or for me about it, or a friend, or somebody else in the church. So, with what Bizzle put out and all of that, I would just encourage you. He did it in a platform that was very public. And he even said in the end that he's just waiting now for the stones to get thrown. He's just waiting now for people to just dump on Bizzle because he was honest. And I'm waiting to kind of see how that works, because how hypocritical will it be for Christians to carry on about not saying anything about Jason Collins, but Bizzle drops an album talking about how honest he was with where he's at right now, and let's see how many throw at his glass house. You know what I mean? He was very honest in that song. And so you don't have a public platform. You have a private platform. Maybe it's around your kids or your wife or, potential fiance, girlfriend, whatever that walk of life is for you. Maybe it doesn't affect you, and if it doesn't, great. But if it does, then it's something you need to really consider and be honest with yourself about where you are. If it's an honest, obvious struggle, then you need to be honest with what that looks like for you. Why do you keep falling into it? What puts you in that place? Are you alone when it happens? Don't be alone anymore. Go take a walk. Get around people. Call someone. I find myself calling people. Because I have to talk. I got to do something else. So don't get so caught up. And if it's not porn and masturbation and all that other stuff, maybe it's cussing, maybe it's treating people bad, whatever that thing is for you. Do something different that kind of takes you out of that realm of where that starts for you. Repent immediately. Trust God, because He'll grow you in it. And He'll definitely take it from you as you develop and do more in and through that. So, I don't need to belabor that point anymore. So, if anything, we're about 5 minutes out of when we would normally be done. But I would just like to, it doesn't have to be the acknowledgement of the porn, but maybe it's something else. It is, I'll venture to say it is something else. Because if you're not struggling with if you're not struggling with one, it's something else. And I would just like to just say, I would like to believe with you, that God is going to cover and even create a safe place for you to be as He takes this from you. And so I would love to just pray with you guys. You can stop at any time, Anthony. I would love to just pray with you guys and just believe